The end of World War II was meant to be a moment of reckoning, of justice and rebuilding, a time when the world would unite to ensure such horrors would never happen again. Instead, beneath the triumphant celebrations and headlines shouting, "Victory!" an extraordinary and deeply troubling secret unfolded that would forever complicate the story of the Allied victory. This secret was Operation Paperclip, a covert program launched by the United States government to recruit some of Nazi Germany's most brilliant scientists and engineers, men who had helped build Hitler's war machine and, in many cases, were implicated in horrific war crimes. Imagine the moral dilemma. A nation that had just defeated the Nazis, now embracing former enemies, some of whom had willingly worked for the regime's most brutal programs, all in the desperate hope of gaining a technological edge over the Soviet Union. It was a calculated gamble driven by fear, ambition, and survival, revealing a darker side of victory, a side where pragmatism triumphed over principle. The stakes were astronomical. The Cold War was beginning, and America feared losing the race for missile technology, chemical weapons, and aeronautics to the Soviet Union. This was not just about science, but about shaping the future of global power, and the costs would echo for generations. Operation Paperclip was more than a program. It was a paradox, a shadowy chapter where heroes and villains blurred, and where the price of security came at the expense of conscience. In 1945, Europe was a shattered wasteland with cities like Berlin, Dresden, and Hamburg lying in ruins after relentless bombings had turned stone and steel into dust. Streets were littered with debris, abandoned children roamed in search of food and family, and the air was thick with the stench of death and destruction. Behind the ruins, millions of people were displaced, their lives uprooted, their hopes fragile amidst the cold ashes of war. This was the backdrop against which the Allies fought, not only to rebuild, but to secure the remnants of German technological genius. Nazi Germany had pioneered some of the most advanced scientific work of the time: rocketry that defied imagination, jet engines that promised unprecedented speed, and chemical weapons that threatened millions. American and Soviet forces descended upon laboratories, factories, and hidden research facilities, searching for the minds behind these breakthroughs. It was a race to claim not just territory, but knowledge, the ultimate prize in a war that had become as much about innovation as it was about soldiers and tanks. For many, these scientists were ghosts of the past, men whose work had wrought destruction and suffering, while for others they represented the future, a future in which science might deliver supremacy or salvation. The landscape was both physical and psychological, a continent haunted by memories of atrocity and driven by the fear of what the next war might bring. Operation Paperclip emerged from this crucible of desperation and ambition, a secret effort to wrest control of genius from the hands of former enemies and redirect it toward a new kind of battle, the Cold War. At its core, Operation Paperclip was a story of impossible choices and moral contradictions. How could the United States, a nation that had fought to defeat Nazi tyranny and expose its crimes, justify welcoming former Nazis into its fold, often erasing or sanitizing their pasts to secure their cooperation? Many of the scientists targeted by the program were not mere technocrats. They had been active members of the Nazi Party, some directly involved in forced labor programs, and others complicit in or aware of horrific human experiments carried out in concentration camps. Yet, in the eyes of United States military and intelligence leaders, the potential cost of rejecting these men was far greater. Allowing the Soviet Union to acquire their knowledge might mean losing the Cold War before it even began. This created a profound ethical paradox, because America's commitment to justice and human rights was now pitted against the harsh realities of global politics and national survival. Behind closed doors, officials manipulated records and obstructed investigations to protect these scientists from scrutiny, in some cases intentionally hiding evidence of their complicity in war crimes. The tension extended beyond government offices. It touched the very soul of the nation, exposing a rift between the ideals Americans believed in and the sacrifices deemed necessary for security. The scientists themselves were trapped in this tension, often caught between guilt, self-preservation, and a desire to continue their work. For some, cooperation was a means of escape from prosecution. For others, it was a chance to reinvent themselves in a new country. The conflict wasn't just political or strategic, it was profoundly human, raising timeless questions about redemption, accountability, and the cost of progress. The implementation of Operation Paperclip was a massive and complex undertaking marked by secrecy, deception, and urgency. Hundreds of German scientists and technicians were quietly transported to the United States, often under new identities or with sanitized backgrounds, and placed in military bases and research institutions far from public view. These men brought with them a trove of advanced knowledge, especially in rocketry, knowledge that would prove pivotal for America's nascent space and missile programs. Among the most famous was Wernher von Braun, a visionary engineer who had led the development of the V-2 rocket, the world's first long-range ballistic missile, responsible for devastating Allied cities during the war. Von Braun's past was controversial because he had been an SS officer and his work had been fueled by the labor of concentration camp prisoners. Yet his talent was undeniable, and American officials quickly made him a centerpiece in the race to explore space and develop intercontinental ballistic missiles. The arrival of these scientists was met with unease and ethical questions, both within the government and among the American public, though much of this controversy was suppressed or ignored to protect national interests. Behind the scenes, tensions simmered as scientists wrestled with their personal demons and pasts, while military leaders pushed for rapid results amid escalating Cold War pressures. The veil of secrecy was thick. Entire files were classified, and official histories were rewritten to present a sanitized version of events. This cloak of silence complicated the historical record and sowed seeds of mistrust that would only begin to unravel decades later as journalists and historians uncovered the full story. The true turning point in Operation Paperclip came with the launch of Sputnik by the Soviet Union in 1957, a moment that shocked America and ignited a fierce space race. The Soviets' success laid bare the vulnerability of the United States and underscored the strategic importance of rocket technology, bringing the work of former Nazi scientists into sharp focus. Von Braun and his team, once architects of destruction, were suddenly heroes in the eyes of the American government and public, spearheading the creation of the rockets that would eventually carry the first Americans into orbit and to the moon. This transformation from weapon builders for a brutal regime to pioneers of peaceful exploration was nothing short of dramatic, but it did not erase the moral complexities at its heart. The United States had effectively turned a blind eye to the past in order to claim supremacy in science and military power, raising uncomfortable questions about the ethical costs of victory. The success of Operation Paperclip fueled decades of military advancements, from missile technology to chemical weapons, and helped establish the United States as a global superpower. Yet, beneath the triumph was a lingering shadow, one that historians, survivors, and descendants would grapple with for years to come. Operation Paperclip's legacy is as complicated as the history it shaped, leaving a lasting impact on science, politics, and ethics. On one hand, it propelled the United States to unprecedented heights in space exploration and military technology, playing a crucial role in winning the Cold War and advancing human knowledge. On the other hand, it forced the nation to confront uncomfortable truths about the price of progress and the limits of moral compromise. By welcoming men who had been part of a brutal regime, America sparked debates that continue to this day about justice, accountability, and the meaning of forgiveness. The program exposed the fragile line between survival and morality, demonstrating how governments can sometimes sacrifice principles for power. As classified documents have gradually surfaced, and scholars like Annie Jacobsen have unveiled the full story, the world has been forced to reckon with the contradictions at the heart of Operation Paperclip. It serves as a powerful reminder that history is rarely simple or pure. It is a tapestry woven with triumph and tragedy, brilliance and darkness, and choices that shape the future in ways both inspiring and troubling. Ultimately, the story of Operation Paperclip challenges us to ask difficult questions about how far we are willing to go to protect our security and what we are willing to overlook in the process. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more history content. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments.